Greetings, good evening, YouTube world, and everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Game Tourney Forever with your host, Game Tourney Forever. And here we are, back again with another video. Uh, Man, it's been fun doing these and kind of telling my game story for all this time, but this month has just been wild being able to do so many of these videos just with my son not being in town. Anyways, y'all, here we are to the last system I ever got while I lived with my parents. I know yesterday I talked about the PlayStation 2 and how it was kind of the last main console from my childhood, and it was. But this was the true last console from my childhood. This was, in fact, the last system I picked up while I lived with my parents, the Game Boy Advanced SP. And I know you guys have seen if you've seen my Game Boy Color or Game Boy episodes, I didn't have a system. Well, here I've got three. None of these are my original. I ended up giving my original to my son's older brother, who still has it to this day. And I just love that. In fact, he got rid of his DS and his 3DS. This was the only thing he kept of his handhelds. Of course, he's got a Switch and a PS4 and a Wii, but this was the only handheld he kept. But yeah, so today, of course, I'll get into my history, thoughts on some of the games I have. Had a lot more of these games than I did Game Boy and Game Boy Color. But again, very similar to the N64 and the Game Boy Color. Most of these games I didn't get till way later. I barely had any games early on for this system. And so with that, yeah, when this system was coming out, I remember, well, first we got to talk about the Game Boy Advance, right? That came out rather quickly after the Game Boy Color. I want to say it was only, 2 or 3 years later? It was such a short time span that the Game Boy Color had. And I remember I had my Game Boy Color, but my brother, he was still rocking a Game Boy Pocket at the time. And so when this Game Boy Advance came out, he got one, and I remember him getting it. I remember looking at it, and I think the first game he got was the original Golden Sun, and I remember seeing the visuals and just being blown away. I was like, oh my god, like we'd finally gotten like a huge step up from the Game Boy Color. And I remember he had the little worm light because unfortunately the first system, despite the form factor being so comfortable, it still wasn't backlit, wasn't even front lit. But at that time, that jump for him from that Pocket to that was just so big. He didn't care. He loved it. I remember looking at him and being like, with my Game Boy Color, like, man, that's a cool system, right? Well, so in 2001 or 2002, they came out with the GBA SP, and they had the first model, which has a front lit display. This is my only front lit display model I have, and of course I got this on Black Friday years ago for a good deal, but I really actually want to get this switched out with the backlit screen. In fact, this black model I have here is the Model 2, and this used to be the main GBA SP I used, but man, I dropped it and shattered it. It broke. You guys can see. But it still works. So my ultimate goal would be to send this off to a modder and have them move all the innards into that, and they can move that into here. Because this is a great system, but it's not really well usable right now because it's broken. And that's just going to lead me to say, hey, be careful with these things, guys, because if you drop this on a hard floor, it'll break easily. That's actually what happened and why I gave my son's older brother my old system, because we actually bought him one, me and his mom, and she was rushing him or something, and he dropped it outside, and his broke too. So if you're playing these, I want to stress, like, maybe play them indoors, like around carpet. I would not risk taking them anywhere where it can drop and just break because they're definitely not sturdy. The GBA, the original form factor, is definitely more sturdy, but this is the most recent one I got, and it's good. The only problem with it is it's one of those bootlegs, but I had no idea it was a bootleg when I bought it. It does have the bright screen, but the way you can tell is if you look back here, it doesn't have like the normal sort of information that a true GBA would have. Now it still plays. It has all the ports, but I mean, just looking at the buttons, but especially like the way this one closes compared to these other ones, you could just tell the buttons too. They don't feel as nice. Again, it gets the job done. It works well. It just you can tell it's like a bootleg model, and the battery dies rather quickly on this system too. In fact, I'm going to turn that down. But you guys, that's actually the first game I got when I got my GBA SP. So I ended up getting one, and I got Pokemon Ruby version. And I remember for me, because I only had blue at the time, I shared yellow and red with my brother. This was a massive jump in terms of graphics and just all the extra stuff you could do in this game. With I think it was like beauty contests and holding items, and it was a lot. I never did finish this one. I got pretty far, but again, being a completionist and wanting to catch all the Pokemon, there was some really difficult ones that just aggravated me. But really cool game. Glad I still have the box. I'd love to get Sapphire and Emerald someday, although Emerald would just... I've seen the prices. It's nuts how much that goes for. But yeah, if you love Pokemon, I definitely recommend Emerald. I think you can get or not Emerald, Ruby. I think you can actually get some newer versions on the 3DS. I think they're called, I don't remember, it's Omega Sapphire and Alpha Ruby or something like that. But in any case, so yeah, that was my first game. Played a good deal of it, but then like, I don't know, guys, I guess this was '01 or '02, I would have been about 17 or 18 during this time. And I gotta say, this was the last console, again, that I got with my parents, but also the last console I bought for a long time. I didn't buy another game console after this till I got my own PlayStation 2. I kind of just stepped away from gaming. I was just more into like basketball, hanging out with my friends. I'll be honest, girls, my priorities just changed at that time. I was working. My car became a big focus. My first vehicle was an '89 Formula Firebird, and it had a V8, 305 tune port injection. I put Flowmasters on there, had some exhaust, some big Dunlop wide Super Sport tires. It had the WS6 suspension. In any case, I started spending money there. I love, I put a sound system in it, blacklight setup, just, had the subs. Just priorities changed, really. And so this was kind of that final system for me, like being a young kid guy, before I got back into things later. And so, took it with me wherever I went, not like in terms of when I moved out with my parents, but just never really played it that much. Now, over the years, I have gotten more into collecting for it. I love collecting complete in box for this system. I love the boxes, and this game system is like having a portable Super Nintendo. It really is. I just love the graphics and the gameplay on the games on this system, and we'll just get some of the accessories I have out of the way. So first, this thing came with a little power adapter, because it wasn't like the Game Boy Advanced and all the Game Boy iterations before. This was the first one that had an internal battery that you could charge, which for me was a game changer. I love that. Never to have to change batteries again. Now, in time, these will die and you're going to have to get whole new ones, right? But I haven't experienced that yet with any of mine. They're all working well, so that's that. This cable right here, accessory, was a very big important one, This thing came in so much handy with my brother and me for Pokemon battling, Pokemon trading. That was kind of the main reason we used it. It's the transfer cable, but there's other games out there where you can use this for multiplayer as well. And I'll show some of those that I have here. So, so the games I have for this system, I've got Advanced Wars, and I remember I got that at Black Friday. Really good strategy RPG with like tanks and stuff. They remade slash remastered this game for the Switch. I don't like the way it looks at all. I much prefer the pixel art here. I just think it looks way better. So I never picked up the new one. I was very content with this. Which, by the way, yeah, you can play that on a large TV. You can actually play these on a large TV. So I very rarely use the GBA. I play most of these games on my GameCube Game Boy player. Because just I have that Ori pad controller, so it just plays these games in the Game Boy games so well. So it's like that's where I find myself playing it most often. Next game we got Astro Boy here. Really great game from Sega. This is a really fun, challenging game, but the graphics look wonderful. And again, I think I got this from Game Over, but yes, really good Sega game right here. I know you guys, I've mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics as one of my all-time favorites. So of course, I had to get Tactics Advance. Don't like it as much as the original, but it's still a really good game. And one really cool thing about this game is if you play it on the GameCube Game Boy Advance player, there's actually some special color options just for that. And yeah, I turned them on, and it does make a difference. It looks really nice and pretty with that on. But yes, really great game if you love strategy RPGs. All right. Let's get to these two. So I think I mentioned to you folks that I was playing through the whole Metroid series with my neighbor Paul. Well, after we finished that, we moved on to Fire Emblem. Right now we're on Radiant Dawn. We've been playing them in order. But this was the first one we played, and this was the very first Fire Emblem I ever played. I got this complete in box at Game Over, and it just sat on my shelf until we pulled it out, and it was cool. I have the Double Dash for GameCube with the bonus disc. We ended up linking that with this, and we unlocked a bunch of cool extra features, and we beat this game inside and out with Elliewood, and then I went back and did it with Hector. We haven't done like a whole bunch of the different difficulties and gotten a bunch of the conversations, but through the 2 playthroughs, that's about as much content as I unlocked or beat. And I had a blast with this game. The music is great. The story is good. Man, some gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching moments in here with some of the stuff that happens, but man, one thing I'll say is as we've moved forward through playing the Fire Emblem games, I love these 2D pixel art style games. They were so good. This one, and I probably played even more of this one, the Sacred Stones, because in this one you could actually grind. And so same thing, we beat the game with the girl, who I can't remember her name right now, and then I played with the guy after. I wish I could remember their name. Oh yeah, Erica and Ephraim. Yes. And then I started doing the, I think it's called the Creature Campaign, where you can like unlock some other characters, and just add more. And I stopped because I got real far in this dungeon that you can't, like, if you die, you start over. And I just haven't gone back to it. I don't know. One of these days I might, because I think the only character I haven't unlocked is like the final boss character, and I forget his name. You got to beat the dungeon like 3 times in a row, and I think I've beaten it once, and I was near the end of the second playthrough. But yeah, another fantastic strategy RPG with incredible storytelling. Both these games, just wonderful, wonderful. All right. Also got the second Golden Sun game. I saw this in great shape somewhere. It was either I think it was again Game Over. Had to get it. Really hope to get the first one someday so I can play them back to back. But yes, managed to get the second one. Just want to get that first one. And here we got Super Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Big fan of Mario role playing games, and I know this is one of the best ones. So, of course, had to get this. Played a little bit, need to play more. But I've watched my son play his 3DS version of this, and yeah, it looks fun. So, I'll definitely have to come back to this at some point soon. Alrighty. We got Super Mario Super Circuit. This, I think, was the first game I picked up after Pokemon Ruby, but not till years later when I started getting into the GBA. And you know, this is almost like a blend of the N64 and the Super Nintendo games. It's almost like if Mario Kart had come out on a 32-bit system. That's what it reminds me of. You kind of have features of both, but there's a ton of content in here, y'all. This game is better than what I think it gets credit for. And this would be a game you'd want to use that link cable for. And there's cables out there I've seen where you can play like multiple people. So, good Mario Kart game. Just, you know, I think it gets a little underrated because it's like the earliest handheld version. But I think it's really cool. Alright. Getting to some more Nintendo here. So, as me and my neighbor Paul played through the Metroid series, we eventually did get to these two. Fusion. This was a fun game. Again, it just had been sitting on my shelf. We pulled it down. We played it. I tell you what, some of the upgrades on this game were so hard to get. Luckily, my neighbor Paul, he is like an expert at the, I guess, running and ducking and just all the little intricate things you had. He had to do those parts. There were some I could do, but there were some that I was like, I cannot believe you did that. But yeah, we ended up unlocking everything and beating this game. And my gosh, some of the bosses. This was one of the harder Metroid games we played playing through them all. This one had, especially in the beginning, it was tough. As you got more upgraded, you definitely could feel you were getting stronger, but gosh, early on, this was a tough game. But good, I definitely recommend it. We also played Zero Mission. We actually played this right after we played the original on NES. And while I enjoyed the NES one, because it only took us like 2 sittings to play it, this one did take a little longer, but I loved having a map. I loved the updated music and visuals, and I love the added content at the end of the game. This is a really great way to play the original Metroid. I'd always recommend go play the original Metroid, but if you had to pick, this would be the one. And again, just an amazing game. The visuals look really good on here. You know, and a lot of these games are on the Switch Online. So go play them there, you know, if that's an easy way to check them out. But yes, amazing title. Alright, got my first reproduction game. We've all wanted it to come here. They never bring it here. So I just went and got a repro, an English translation on my own. And I started it, but since I haven't beaten Earthbound yet, I haven't really played much of this. I've beaten Mother 1, the original, and I'm really far into Earthbound. So I haven't gotten into this yet, but I hope to complete Earthbound and then finally get into this one, because I hear it's really good. So, but yes, guys, if you want this, you're going to have to go find a reproduction, because Nintendo just has never brought it over here yet. We'll see what happens, if they ever do. And then I already mentioned a Pokemon Ruby, my first game. These 3 are probably the most recent games I've picked up for the system. All 3 Sonic Advance games. I got onto a big Sonic kick where I wanted to collect the games that I didn't have that I was very interested in, mostly 2D. And I've only played these a little bit, and they're similar but different. I don't know which one I like the best. Maybe 2. But they're all good. Like, if you love, like, the original Sonic the Hedgehog, the 2D side-scrolling, check these out. these are a really fun way to get some of that gameplay, but more added on to it, some new innovations. And the art style of these on the GBA, they just look really good. They run well. It's crazy how good of a job they did on those. But then that Sonic like Genesis release was terrible. I've seen footage of that, and it's like, man, how they put out these great games, THQ Sega, but that terrible Genesis Sega release of the original Sonic, I don't know what was going on there. And then finally, again, I picked this one up from Game Over. I got the Minish Cap complete in box. I'm all about my Zelda games, right? And I've only played a little bit of this. Hope to get back and play more. I have a friend who and my neighbor Paul coming over. Old good buddy. We've been playing. We beat Zelda 1 on the NES, and we're near the end of Zelda 2, which I'm excited. I've never beaten Zelda 2, so about to experience that. But we've been playing a lot of Zelda, and so I imagine at some point we're going to get to a lot of these. And this is one I look forward to because I really like the visuals. It really harkens back to those, mostly a 16-bit Zelda game. But yes, very happy to have this one as well. And guys, that is about concludes my little small GBA collection. This is a system that, again, I only collect for complete in box, and so when I'm out looking, that's all I'm looking for. And some games to just spitball at you that I would love. I'd love to get so of course that Golden Sun game, right? The 3 Castlevania games that came out on this system. Heavily wanting to get those. Sapphire and Emerald Pokemon, like I said. I would love to get Leaf Green too. And off the top of my head, those are kind of the main games I want. I'm sure there's more out there that I'm just not thinking of at the moment. But yes, I would love to finish the Pokemon, get those Castlevania games, and that other Golden Sun game. And yeah, I always look for them when I go to the game shop or game conventions. But guys, this is a great system. If you're looking for hardware, real hardware, these have gotten expensive. I think the original GBA is still cheap. I think even the front lit model is a fair price, but when you start looking for this backlit model, it starts to get expensive, especially if they're in good shape. They do make modded original GBAs that are pricey, but man, they look great, they sound great, the screen's backlit. I actually want to get one of those. It's actually my goal to get a Four Swords Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles setup. So I want to get one of those modded GBAs with the backlight, the original model. I want to put this screen in here. I want to get a Famicom SP and then put this screen in that one, and then get one more backlit model. So I have a lot of purchasing to do, and I don't know when all that's going to happen. Just things have gotten so expensive. But yeah, you have your options between a GBA, a front-lit GBA SP, the backlit one. There's actually a really rare kind of variant called the Game Boy Micro. Very small. I don't have one. And it'll only play GBA games. It will not play your Game Boy or Game Boy Color games. But it's a very cool portable system if you just want something for GBA that's real small and portable. It's something neat. You can change the faceplates on them. It's pretty cool. And actually the DS and DS Lite have a GBA slot at the bottom, so you can play them on those systems as well, which is pretty neat. My son, he's actually kind of interested in a Game Boy, a DS Lite because of that feature, because he's actually gotten into the GBA over recent years, and I was telling him, yeah, you can't play them on your new 2DS or new 3DS, but the DS Lite has that slot, if you want your own, and so we'll see. We'll see if we get him one. But then, of course, like I said, there's the Switch Online. But, guys, thanks again for joining me for this Game Boy Advanced episode. Again, this system, it means a little bit to me, just with it being the last one I got officially before I moved out of my parents' house. And the last one I had for a long time, for a number of years till I got back into it. So, thanks again for joining me, and we'll catch you guys next time.